This is Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We infuse, we energize, we inspire, and we empower intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes in BW and beyond. Dumela, dear viewer, ke Mogobe, Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe, ke go amogela once again. That's an honor to say you are welcome to this particular podcast, this episode. I'm excited that we are still getting along, but let me just take a moment to say kindly subscribe. We subscribe together so that we can wrestle with these algorithms and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I have a guest, and her name is Busi Mabula. We're going to talk about art. We're going to talk about the challenges around your profession as an artist. But before we do that, let's ask you to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. A little bit about your background.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mogobe and all the listeners. I am Busi Mabula and I'm from Sinyawe, a very small village. Sinyawe, small village in Sinyawe. But I'd like to say so 2 villages. Hey, I feel like I resonate with where my mom comes from and where my dad comes from. So, my mom's Tonota, Papa's Sinyawe. So, so that's how I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a visual artist in Botswana, a young visual artist in Botswana, and my passion comes from deep within. I always tell people that art chose me. I didn't choose art, and it's my passion. It's a talent. Yes.
So academics,
I studied entrepreneurship, actually. I didn't study art. I studied entrepreneurship in BAC from the year 2018 to 2021. That's when I completed my studies.
Okay. All right. So, and then once you completed, what happened?
Once I completed my studies, that's a great question. I jumped into art and I didn't look back. So when I completed my studies in 2021, around May, I deeply dived into the world of art and started to advertise myself, started to put myself out there, which is so scary because I didn't know what to do. But I reached out to a couple of artists that I knew. I looked up on Instagram, looked up on Facebook. Then I got in contact with them, and I knew somebody who had been doing art prior at school, because I had done it in junior school as a practical. I was just a bit curious to what art is, and that's when I found myself in it for life. So I was able to meet the likes of Itumele Motswetla, the likes of Prince Tom, the likes of Wilson and Ngoni, and those were the people who held my hand throughout this journey to say, hey, this is what you do, you know, because put me out there. But with art is a different animal, because your platform is your platform and it's unique to you. So Haikele, Mr. Mogobe, an artist, so I think at the first take I wanted people to promote me that way. But they set me down and they said, this is how you promote yourself, this is how you get yourself out there. So this is exactly what I need to do.
But what originally attracted you to art? What is it about art?
What is it about art? Hey, so I believe that I was born for it. But I think let's just take it back a little bit. It started with my dad. That's where the passion comes from. It started with that side of the family. Because as far as I can remember, as far as I can date back, I remember that my grandmother used to weave baskets. So we used to have small baskets, and they'd just be in the dining room and the bedrooms. So they were done by my grandmother. At first I didn't know they were done by my grandmother. But the time then I realized, oh, my grandmother is actually a talent. So I think when I look back, that's where everything began.
What do you call them?
The baskets.
Yeah.
And then my dad, I remember having a conversation with my dad one day, because I'm a daddy's little girl. So he was in the dining room sketching plans, because he was a construction worker. So every now and then he would sketch plans for his clients and show them, this is what I am going to do for you, just to pitch, just a rough draft. So there was a time that he was busy doing that, and I looked and I was like, this is interesting. I was around 12, 11, 10, somewhere there. I don't really recall my age, but it was around then when I realized that my dad is onto something. So I asked him, what are you doing? He told me, I'm sketching a house plan. And I'm like, what is it for? Do you have to sketch, or you just construct the house? He's like, you have to sketch. And I'm like, what? This is the first time I've ever come across such information. So I remember him just taking me through everything that, so this is a profession, this is what we do, and this is how you can navigate through it. So I remember him saying the word architect. So I was like, what is that? And he's like, it's an architect. And then ever since then, every time they asked us in school what you want to be when you grow up, I'd be like, an architect. Even though I didn't understand it really well, I took my time to really understand it. So ever since I was young, I just wanted to do architecture. So as I grew into my studies and academia, navigating the rough terrain of, choosing your career and career development, at the end of the day, it's a long story. It's a long story, but I believe that it took a really soft turn to leading me up to being an entrepreneur, studying entrepreneurship at school instead of architecture, but knowing that architects draw, and that's exactly what I want to do when I grow up. So I was like, you know what? Let me just go through this entrepreneur realm. Eventually, it'll lead me to the world of art. I didn't back out. I didn't back out on being an architect, because I see myself being one, because there's a lot of design in the space of art. So I tend to design sketches. I've worked along interior designers, I've worked along architects, so I see myself a lot in that space. So I'm confident that I haven't lost track of my passion, my first love. Yes.
So currently, what are you doing in terms of, what would you describe your current occupation? And feel free to refer to any of your works and so on to make us understand.
My current occupation is being a full-time artist. Yes. So on 2021, when I decided to go into the realm of art, I closed my eyes and completely dived in 100% into this realm. I found it interesting because even the people who are coaching me were doing it full time. So I was like, I have no excuse not to, because all these people around me that I'm seeking guidance from are already doing it full time. So it was an inspiration for me. So it motivated me, it added fuel. Plus also, I'm always of the philosophy that if you're going to do something, do it completely, don't hold back. So that's one of the things that prompted me to do that. So I am a visual artist full time, and I work along individual clients. I have individual clients, I have corporate clients, and I'm navigating through that clientele. So I do sell portraits, beautiful portraits like seen in the background, to individuals, and I do sell to corporate art, because they're always rebranding, they're always looking for something fresh, contemporary nowadays, so they tend to work with me a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see that. Look at that one at the top there.
Yeah.
What's the inspiration for that one? I don't know whether it shows in the camera. I hope it does. Does it show? That one at the top there? It does.
It's a leopard.
A leopard? A leopard.
Yes. It was an expression. I think that with animals, when I paint animals, I always go back to how they make me feel. When I see an animal, how does it make me feel? What is the emotion that it evokes for me when I look at the animal? When I think of an eagle, what comes in mind. When I think of a lion, what comes in mind? When I think of a chicken, what comes in mind? So when I think of a leopard, I think of boldness. I think of eagerness. I think of standing position and not being moved by circumstance. So also I paint according to how I feel at the time. I paint according to my circumstance at that point in time. So when I painted this, what I had in mind is my journey as an artist. I think this one is very personal because...
How long would it take to come up with something like this?
How long would it take? It would take a week to 2 weeks. Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I interrupted you. Still explaining how
your
creative process works.
Let's go back to that. The creative process that when I created this, I was in a state of mind of... We talked about imposter syndrome before this interview. And as artists, we do suffer a lot from imposter, feeling like you're not good enough, feeling like there's someone...
It's the lowest self-esteem. Is that what imposter syndrome is?
It is, yes, it is self-esteem, but self-esteem is a little bit brutal, I'd say.
Oh,
so I think I would phrase it as in the lack of belief in oneself's ability, even though it is self-esteem. But I would like to phrase it a little bit softer. But yes, I was going through imposter, that whole, because it was the week, a couple of weeks before my art exhibition, which we held here at Black. And it was a lot. It was a lot of planning, a lot of stress, and it was a lot for me as an artist. So I felt like I'm not good enough. I'm not going to manage to pull out the solo art exhibition. And I had a lot of self-doubt. So doing this portrait was helping to give me boldness and courage and saying, you know what, this is who I am. Because not everybody can get up and say, I'm going to do art. There's a lot of talented artists, but some are not even practicing. Some are in the grave, and some
they went to the grave without doing anything.
They went to the grave without doing anything. So I looked at, I had to a little bit of self-reflection and found that there's a leopard inside of me. Yeah.
Are these two women, or is it a gentleman and a lady?
It's two ladies.
Two ladies.
Yes.
With massive afros.
Massive afros.
What's the message there?
The message here is just ease of life and ease of just not being too strict with yourself. And I think the colors give a vibe of being the nightlife and just being out and being in the moment. So I was in the moment and I was like, I'm feeling happy. I'm just going to do whatever comes naturally to me. And I painted that piece.
Okay.
Yes.
Here's a chance for you to share with us some of your highlights in terms of triumphs and successes as an artist, as an entrepreneur. Go ahead.
My accomplishments. My accomplishments... the first accomplishment is actually, I've never shared it before, but I think it goes back to what I talked about the leopard, that just starting, that's a huge step.
Starting, the first step.
The first step is beginning to become an artist, executing whatever you feel and saying, this is how I feel, this is what I feel my calling is in life, and I believe that God is calling me for this, and I need to do it. And the moment that the calling hit, or God called and you answered, that moment of execution, I think that is the biggest. I think that's my first accomplishment, because everything else was bound to happen. Everything else was going to be a domino effect. But I believe the strongest and the most difficult for everyone is beginning to be something.
You mean just buying a brush and starting on the canvas?
Exactly. That was my biggest accomplishment.
How did you do that? Did you remember how it happened?
How it happened? I think I just take it back to my school days when I was in BAC, because I was in a friend group of creatives, and at that moment I've always seen them doing creative work, whether it was modeling, whether it was YouTube, whether it was Instagram. They were into those kinds of things. So I think being in an environment where people are just doing creativity, getting things done, you're in you're put in the spot to say you need to execute. So I just instantly knew that I'm of that energy now. There's no turning back. If you're gonna be friend with yourself with these kinds of people, there's no going back. But also that I look back to why I chose entrepreneurship, because I feel like there was a pivot. Why didn't you become an architect and you became an entrepreneur? It put a lot of pressure on not unhealthy pressure, but healthy pressure to say entrepreneurs execute. Entrepreneurs are there to change the world. So you're not going to be a change agent unless you actually get it done, unless you have these ideas and put them to work. And I think that pressure comes from the entrepreneurial mindset, comes from the entrepreneurial persona to say just do it. Yes.
You still remember your first piece of art, and how did you do?
My first piece of art, let me think back to it. I sold it to the organization I was working at prior. But I also forgot to mention that my friends used to laugh at me and saying, they used to say, because I used to be like, guys, I really have this feeling in me, this urge in me that I want to do art, and I never worked on it. So first I held back a lot. I forgot to really mention those beginning stages that I used to procrastinate. Eventually I was like, I can't do this anymore. I have to execute. So that uncomfortability of always telling people that you're going to do something but never showing them proof that you're doing it actually became the push that I needed. So sometimes telling people what you're going to do works against you. Sometimes it works for you. Yes. Now back to your question of selling my first piece. Every artist knows this. Well, most artists know this, that your first art will be something that's sentimental. Like selling your first art piece, it's hard because that's your first baby. That's your baby. You know, that's your that's your first child. So I didn't want to part with my work because it was a sentimental moment. But I knew that she had to go because to be an artist is to sell art. Otherwise, I'm just an artist and I'm not doing anything. So I was working at an organization and they invited me to meet Ms. Botswana at that time. I'll just give her a big shout out. She had one of from Ms. Botswana. She had one of my first art pieces, and I sold it to the organization that presented it to her. So it was a very exciting moment because I got to meet Ms. Botswana. So it was big. I think it was big. It wasn't just like selling to anyone, you know. But to sell my first art piece to such a statue was a big deal for me. It was huge.
That's great. Do you think the significant barriers of entry, put it differently, is there a lot of cost involved in getting started?
Costs.
In terms of buying the material and the canvas, or it's relatively easy to get in?
I love that question because when we price our art, people will say it's overpriced, it's a little bit high end. Why do you have to price it so high? But it's not about it high. It's not about the steepness of it, but it's more of the input costs because it's very expensive to paint. Not that expensive, but it's costly. You know, it's costly because canvas is pricey, then the paints are pricey, and then then the creative process to getting it done, because I tend to say also the concepts to my art vary to the pricing. So something that you may see that it's a bigger painting might cost less than a smaller canvas because of the concept that it took to doing it and the time and energy, the labor it took to putting that art piece into and bringing it to life.
So how do you normally respond when they say it's a bit pricey?
It's not my target audience.
You just take it like that.
Yes, but it wasn't always that way, because at first you're starting, you have this big goal you have this big dream as an artist, and you're like, I want to change the world, I want to take over, I want to be Pablo Picasso, and then you kind of realize it's not always that way. You want to target everyone because you want to share that message with the whole Botswana.
Picasso sold a lot of his art after he had passed on.
He did.
Yeah, and he was recognized much after he had passed on.
Yeah.
It wasn't Picasso when he was alive, which is... Why is it about art that some of your people in your industry become famous after they've passed on? Have you thought about that?
It's the storyline. People love a great storyline. People love controversy as well. I think in the story behind Picasso's life, when you read on Picasso, you know, the crazy stories on Picasso, his controversial life and everything. People fell in love with the persona, and then they fell in love with the art. So I guess I have a duty to make you fall in love with me as the audience, so that you can understand the art. So there's a lot of storytelling, a lot of positioning, a lot of branding that you need to do in order to achieve that. And that's why the story is stronger. I think even in any art creative industry, whether it's music, whether it's movie, whether it's dance, most artists get more revenue generation on their craft after they pass on. We can look at the likes of Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Whitney Houston, and so many artists. I could just name a few.
Okay, speaking of triumphs and successes, you've had a few. You had your art displayed in the form of an exhibition, a couple of them. Tell us about those and how they went.
They went great. Oh my word. I would like to start with the first show, which is an art auction. So it went great. I wasn't ready to host. That's for sure. But I think I always go back to the
Why do you think you're not ready?
I think I wasn't ready because I was new, very fresh out of the box, and I didn't understand a lot. I had attended shows before prior. I've been attending art exhibitions and different versatile creative shows. So I had an idea to saying, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to host these people. You need to make sure that there's crew there on the floor. You know, there's a photographer, and then you have to make sure these people are really well hosted. So I knew that. But trusting myself, I think the beginner steps, it's with everyone. When you start, you wonder if it will perform great. It will perform to you, because you always have an idea to what you want to execute. If it's not executed that way, you'll be highly disappointed, and you'll disappoint everybody around you. So I think the stake was high when it comes to the people around me, the support that I was being given at home with my friends and the likes, and there was a lot of pressure. So I think I didn't want to let anybody down. It wasn't the pressure that they would put on me, but the pressure I put on myself, because that's it. You guys came with me this far. I don't want to let you guys down. Yes.
So where was it, and how did it go?
It went really well. It was at the Steinbeck Incubator, and that's where it was held, and people pitched, and they loved the ambience, they loved the art. I think the art is really the art was really the star of the show, as it should. And they loved it, and they just gave me great remarks. And someone once said, like, the one comment I'll never forget is that Busi's living in a different revolution, because this is still new to Botswana, and it's still fresh to to Botswana.
People thought your art was revolutionary.
Yes, they thought it was revolutionary, very different.
Now, any other exhibition?
Yes, I held it right here at Black.
Ground floor, yes.
Ground floor, and it went really well, and the reception was great. Prior to the exhibition, I made it to the Monitor newspaper, and after the exhibition, we made it to the Midweek Sun, because they actually came to attend the exhibition, and they recorded everything. They featured me in their newspapers. It was great. They loved it. Yes. So, yeah.
What about the public? Did they buy?
They did.
They bought quite a bit.
They did buy. And then actually something that happened is we did have, I brought my art to the book launch, Mogobe book launch. Everybody who sees this must purchase this book. Yeah. It's a great book. When we were launching the book, I was there with my art, and we got a client from the book launch.
Oh.
So there was like from the exhibition to the book launch. After the book launch, great reception.
Okay.
So yes.
Wonderful. Now, when you create this art, what are the challenges? Share a little bit on your failures, your setbacks,
yes,
and generally.
One setback I could think of at the top of my head was when I was really starting, because I had got my first client, sold to Palisa, the organization that handed Palisa the art piece. Okay, great. My spirits were high because you made Scott such a big goal. Not everybody sells to Ms. Botswana, you know.
Yeah.
And after that, my spirits were high. But there was one organization that I worked with at some point, and it was promising. It was great. I was given
Promising to sponsor you or to.
it was
buy the
promising
art.
to buy the art. It was I think my biggest mistake is the biggest mistake artists make is never getting the deposit before they work with a client. But because I thought, okay, this is a big client, it's an organization, we're gonna work great. I took them up and I trusted the word of mouth, and I started sketching. I made about 15
Did they give you a
pieces.
brief?
They gave me a brief. They emailed me. We talked over email. They briefed me.
Is that email enough to show their commitment?
I thought it was. But in that 2 weeks, because also they gave me a time period. So I had only around 2 weeks. Yeah, that was 14 days to do the art and deliver, which I did. 15 pieces. They were small in nature, but they were a lot because they costed me, and I had sleepless nights, and the last night I didn't sleep at all, and I knew this is my final day. Submitted, did all that I needed to do, and delivered. The delivery was great. It was perfect because I did exactly what they wanted to do in a very short period of time, because they were the ones that had delayed. Didn't pull through, really. It really didn't.
How do you mean? What happened?
They didn't buy. They didn't get that purchase.
Why?
They said that it was due to the fact that they had already ordered digital pieces. My pieces needed to go digital, so I told them that I'd scan them for them, and
Your pieces are
make
not
prints
digital.
and make prints. I can make prints with my original work. We did that, but they still said it's not what they want. So I feel like it was a difficulty on their end and not on my end, and I ended up losing a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, but
Yes.
I think you should have sought legal recourse.
It was at the beginning. And when you're starting something and something of that nature happens, you're clueless to saying, I think it's
but I
me.
think more and more entrepreneurs need to know that they have rights, and as much as they have obligations to deliver a service, they have rights in terms of the right to be paid for that service.
Yeah.
And that's why we have attorneys. I'm one of them, and our business is to offer redress and to go to the courts and to make sure people are compensated for their work. I think arguably you could have said the communication on the email as well as the oral contracts, do this, those should constitute an agreement which can be enforced.
Yeah.
I'm giving you free advice.
I think I love that, because this is why as artists we need to somewhat, I don't like to use this, but because I have a business background, I'm obliged, but to treat our art like a business. And sometimes we fail to be able to say, hey, I have an art business, because you want to treat it like a craft, like an art, rather than a business. Because once it's a business, it's
Even
that's
if
where
it's
it
a
gets
craft,
mixed
it has to be
up.
paid for.
Exactly.
Somebody's putting their blood, sweat, and
Exactly.
tears into it.
Yeah, so that's your point. That's why it comes in, because it's important to know your rights as an artist. It's important to know the legal stuff when it comes
Any
to
other,
art.
or what came eventually out of that? What did you do with those pieces?
They're still in my storeroom till
Oh,
today.
okay. Maybe you should sell them to other people.
I definitely will, or they'll become my souvenir.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that in the future, I'm like, I once did this.
Yeah. Any other setbacks, failures, or
Any other setbacks?
or teachable moments?
I'd say the difficulties, the challenges in the field of art is being misunderstood
By
by the public, especially in Botswana. I've mentioned this before in my previous interviews, but I would rather break it down so that it's edible. I think it's a huge challenge because Botswana was still a little bit behind in terms of revolving and being with the times. I think when it comes to art, there hasn't been a lot of awareness in art education in our institutions and around, just like with even in private organizations, raising awareness to what art really is. We have the Arts Council in Botswana, which is still very relatively new because last year they were launching around March.
What does it do?
What does it do? Its mandate is basically to facilitate the ease at which creatives operate in Botswana. Is one of the mandates. They're basically facilitators. They don't, they don't regulate anything. They're not a regulatory institution. They don't purchase art or anything like that. But they do hold the hand of the artist and move them from point A to point B. So they haven't really been much in operation, but they're in the works of coming up. So I have a little bit of confidence with them because last year they also issued out grants. There was a mobility grant and the art grant, so you could choose between one of the two. I don't know how that's working out, but in Satlogop it's promising, and we're just waiting to see what they do in the future. So I think also the challenge is that we're still infant, we're still young, the industry's still young, and it's like the responsibility falls on us. I always say entrepreneurially, I blame I know they have their part. I blame the institution. I think we should always look internally and say, what am I doing as an artist to raise awareness to the issues that I have, that I see around me, around my community, around my country, around my nation. So I think there's a huge responsibility with us artists, because it's for us to start a revolution within our nation. It's for us to educate and raise awareness and be out there, and we are trying. We are trying.
I need to ask you about your travels. I know that last year you've been traveling. Tell me a bit about your international travels and your exposure worldwide. How are you tackling that one?
Great question. How am I tackling that? So as those who follow me already know, I had the opportunity to travel to Egypt, Cairo. And Cairo was an experience and a half. We went there to the Intra-Africa Trade Fair. It had been celebrating its 3rd anniversary in the works, and it was a great trade fair. We had a stall there for Botswana. There was just few Botswana entrepreneurs, and I took some of my pieces to display, so that if anybody was popping up by our stall, they would definitely see that exhibited. So it was a great experience. I got to meet some other artists who art as well, but very few visual artists, and it was an inspiration to sing.
So like a handful of people like yourself.
There was a handful of people like myself, so it was just an experience, because when you're doing something and you go out there and see like-minded individuals, that adds fuel to your fire, and it just ignites something in you that is just dangerous and very contagious. So I feel like Cairo was very special to me because it got to ignite so much, a huge spark in me that is still flaming till today, and I still want to use that fire for more things that I want to introduce to Botswana and bring from Cairo till here. The reception was great. It was well received because I feel like Africa is in an era. Africa is in an era.
So what's the big deal? What did they expose you to? What's the thing that really sparked your fire, so to speak? When you were there?
What sparked my fire? It's seeing how passionate people are out there, seeing how eager people are out there to change the world, and because we're from different industries, so it wasn't just art, it wasn't just fashion, it was all the industries that Africa has to offer, whether it was mining, whether it was finance, and everything. everything was there. So being in rooms of people talking about their industries and what they've been able to accomplish, and they're so further ahead, and you look at yourself as a creative industry and say, we're a little bit left behind in Africa.
What have they accomplished then?
What have they accomplished? They're going international. And not that African artists are not going international, but they are doing, they're pushing. And I think that was an inspiration. And they've been able to have, let's say, they've been able to build an African community within themselves to identify themselves as, this is the energy industry. You know, this is what are the industries of the day? Technology industry, visual art. Exactly, so many things that were there, and it was an inspiration, and it fueled the fire to say, I want my Africa to be united creatively, because we're kind of divided when it comes to creativity. There's a division, and I want to get to the root of it. Why are we divided? Why aren't we together when it comes to art creativity? But the good news is that slowly but surely we're getting there, and that's where the spark came from.
I've never been to Cairo. Is it as spectacular as we read about in the old books, and then also on TV, that the pyramids, all the rest of it? Is it really like a blend of wonderment?
It is like that. So we have Old Cairo and we have New Cairo. Where we're going for the exhibition was in New Cairo, but thank goodness to the crew that I was traveling with, we decided to stay in Old Cairo. So I'm a huge traveler. I love traveling. If I could do it for a living, I would. But I still love art, so I think you know I'll be torn apart. But I love traveling, so I was with a crew who appreciated travel. So we decided to stay in Old Cairo because we wanted the full Cairo experience. In the morning, we get to commute to New Cairo, but initially we stay in Old Cairo. So that's where the pyramids are, in Old Cairo. Where literally you wake up with your hot coffee in the morning, overlooking the pyramids of Giza. Spectacular view, if you ask me. Yes.
That's great. All right. Now, any other international exposure you've had? Maybe through social media, etc.?
Yes. I've had a lot of, not a lot, but a handful of exposure. Had been talking to clients in Dubai. I'd say United Arab Emirates, but we've already crossed that bridge with Cairo, so I'll just say specifically Dubai is. I've also had exposure in the US, and I've had talks with clients. Yes.
At least they buy in US dollars, right?
It
helps, doesn't it?
It helps a lot. It helps a lot, and it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. Okay. Would you say that Southern African art is somehow unique, having traveled the world, or is it more or less the same, depending on the individual?
It is more or less the same comparing to the individual, because we're, as much as we are left behind in terms of the knowledge of art and the revolution of art, I think I can definitely appreciate the fact that we're very versatile. We wear many hats. Nobody is similar to the other. We're different. And because we're few, we've been able to somehow symbiotically been able to differentiate ourselves. It was just natural for us. So we are very different, and we have different messages, different ways, and different strokes of painting and sketching and of drawing. So it's different. I love it.
Yeah. Now I want to talk about find out about your social media strategy as an artist. Do you have one, and why is it important?
My social media strategy as an artist is to build. I believe that you build and the people will come. Because I think when at the beginning I had a huge challenge with navigating that, because you'd post and then people would not like, people not comment and engage or anything like that. Just very few, which is friends and family. You'll just find your sister's comment. But it wasn't enough for me, because I wanted to know how well I'm doing, how well I'm positioning myself. So eventually I just decided to go with the mantra that I will post and people will come. And the reception has just been great, because I think It's been great for the most part. It's been very great, and people are coming, and my social media engagement, if I look at Instagram, is doing great. I have the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement, and my LinkedIn, I think that's why I'm also flourishing. I didn't think an artist would flourish on LinkedIn, but we're doing amazing on LinkedIn because that's where my biggest following is.
What's your following?
4,000 followers.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
we're at
a good
4,000.
number.
And I think I'm doing really well. I haven't really tapped into Facebook yet, which I always neglected, and it's my fault because I hadn't gotten a strategy to navigate with Facebook, because I was doing so well on Instagram and doing so well on LinkedIn. Because I will add that most of my attendees were actually from LinkedIn on the social media platform, because when I did the last art exhibition in Black, I mostly didn't advertise like physically. I advertised using my social media platforms, and that's where I got the most engagement. So every time I'd meet an attendee, I'd be asking them, where did you meet me from? And they'll tell me LinkedIn. So that's where I got most stats from.
All right. The buzzword around is the change mindset. Everybody talks about it. Every guest who comes here want to mention something about it. What is your take about this as a young entrepreneur, the change mindset that is talked about everywhere?
There's a quote by Rumi which I really love, that yesterday I woke up and I wanted to change the world. Today I'm a wiser man. Yesterday I was wise that I wanted to change the world, but today I'm wiser. That's the quote. I didn't say it verbatim, but I want to change myself, which basically resonates with me, because
yesterday I wanted to change the world, today I want to change myself.
Exactly. It resonates with me because we always look externally, we always look outwardly. Earlier on I mentioned that we blame the government, we blame organizations, we blame everybody, but we never get to blame ourselves. So with the change mindset, when I hear our president talking about it passionately, I'm always like, you're hitting the nail on the head, because when it comes to me, I believe that change starts with you. And if we ever want to change as an individual, if we ever want to change anything, we ever want to make anything of anything, we need to look within. And when we find it in ourselves to say, I am the person who's going to change me, and then eventually the change will happen around you. It becomes natural, and it happens automatically. So I think with me, when it comes to that connotation, I'd like us for all to look within and look at the man in the mirror and saying, how am I going to better this person, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, and each and every faculty that you need to do it, because you are that person we're looking for in this world. Yes. So
are Botswana beginning to change? Are they responding to the call?
Are Botswana beginning to change? That's a great question that I never really thought about in depth. Are they changing though, Mr. Mogobe?
Well, I don't know. I'm supposed to be asking the questions. It's difficult to know.
I really love what our generation is doing. I can't actually speak for the older generation. Our parents, our grandparents, they were the ones who built University of Botswana. So I'd say that Botswana have been doing so much before we got here, and there's so much to learn from. And I'd say that when we look at our history, there's just so much to learn from. We're here, we're a great nation. Botswana is a great nation. Personally, I believe that.
100%.
100%, majority blacks, and then we have minorities, and we live in harmony. There's a lot of harmony, there's a lot of peace, and because one of the things we uphold, I still think we uphold it. And because now we become we're living in a globalized economy and in a nation, when we look at Botswana, we look at it from how the world is acting. I think we've globalized and we've become westernized, which I don't like. Yes, it's coming from a Gen Z, but I don't like the fact that we've become so modernized. I think also my art if you look at most of my art pieces, they have of African women that are of, they want to.
I like this one.
I love it too. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite because I would like to raise awareness to our African culture and our African roots.
Some kind of taste, right? Yeah, but unique.
Yeah, so I'd love to use my art to become a medium in which I share our culture. So I think that's the only part that I shine with our generation. Our roots. Let's carry that heritage with us forward. But as far as we're doing as a generation, we're really doing good with the resources we're given because we're doing great. Yes.
Okay. Now, here's a chance to sell some of the art. This piece, why should one have it? What does it say to me? What were you communicating?
That piece is a very bold piece because I love the fact that we are also talking about this piece in 2024 because, as you all know,
it's a man on a bike, in case people don't see.
It's a man on a bike. That's specifically Ross Branch. He was racing. It's one of the pictures I captured in order to add more art to it, more creativity to it, because at the time he was racing with Yamaha, and it's a story that talks about his journey, because I also say it's nice to talk about it in 2024 because he recently won Dakar Rally, the first African to win Dakar Rally, position number 2.
Okay.
Yes, so that's a huge take. So if we were to auction this piece, I'm sure it will just be, it will do great. Yes, so it was the beginning of his journey because he used to race part-time and then he started to
Do you know
race.
him personally?
Yes, I know him personally.
Oh, so you're inspired by after you met him, or?
I inspired before I met him and then I met him after. So it was a great piece because he was getting to race full-time. I keep mentioning full-time. I have great respect for a lot of people doing whatever craft they're doing full-time because it takes a lot of energy. So he
total dedication.
Exactly. So he was graduating from doing motorbike cycling part-time and he was doing it full-time. So I put it as a portrait. As you can see, there's a lot of color, there's a lot of things going on. It's him racing his bike in a galaxy space, and those small dots are stars. They signify this him racing amongst other stars. In actuality, he's a star amongst stars. So when he goes to Dakar, all these rallies, he's racing amongst stars, and he's a star in a big galaxy.
I see the cactus here. One with the cactus.
The one with the cactus is telling because I love nature, I love sunsets. So what better way to infuse both a sunset and nature into one piece?
It's red sunset.
A red sunset, a bold sunset. So it's something I'm very happy about because every time I look at it, it brings me enormous joy.
And this one, what is the message in?
And this one is called The Skyline. It's basically an abstract piece of a sky. So if you look closely, you'll see that the blue, the I'd say the gold and the silver communicate the sky during the daytime when you're looking at it. Yes.
Is it like by the beach? Because I can see something like looks like water there.
I think you should keep asking those questions because as an artist we get a lot of questions like, what does this mean? What does it mean? It should also spark something in you, something that I can't ask as an artist. So that's a nugget for you.
Yeah, thank you. And is there a real difference between visual art and abstract art?
Yes. There's a difference. Visual art is like the broad term of just saying ate 21. And then in terms of abstract tends to be a bit confusing to the eyes. You can't tell if that's a human figure or that is an animal, or you can't tell what it is, and it's done that way because
and sometimes the artist doesn't know.
Because the artist doesn't know, but sometimes we know. Or it's just an emotion, because can you explain every emotion you feel? No. So art is an emotion, it's a feeling, it's an experience. So with visual, with abstract, it's something, it's a happening of some sort that sometimes you can explain or can't explain.
Okay. Who are your heroes? Who are your shiros? Who are your mentors? Who do you look up to in this field in general?
In no particular order, because I love and respect each and every one of them. I'd mention Mother K. Masire, because she's someone who's mentored me for years now. And she's Mother K. Masire. She's been with me through the highs, the lows, the questions, the ugly, the beautiful, you know. So much respect for her. And when she's watching this, I love you.
Yeah, I once interviewed her. You've seen my interview of her?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, look
I'm
out
going
for
to
it.
check it out after this.
Yeah.
She's somebody who's very close to my heart because, like her name says, mother, she's very nurturing. She takes time with me and to know how I'm feeling, because artists, we feel a lot. That's why we're able to express so much and boldly and canvas, because we feel a lot. And she's the one who's able to navigate my emotions with me and say, this is what you're feeling, this is what you're not feeling, this is how you should go about, you know, these sort of actions. I can tell her about personal experiences I'm having, professional experience that I'm having, and she'll always find an answer to both. And she's been holding my hand throughout this journey, and because I was young and confused, she kept on pushing me. Another person that comes to mind is Mr. Dada.
Which one?
Which one? That's a good question. He's Nigerian, and he's living in Botswana full time, and he's basically settled here. No, it's not the usual Dada. No, it's not that one. But he's been pivotal with me in this journey, because he teaches me a lot. He's always giving me more insight to what I'm doing. The last quote that I told him, I met him recently, and I was telling him of all the ordeals I was going through recently, and he's like, Busi, and he speaks very calmly. He says, don't sweat the small stuff. He's like, don't sweat the small stuff. And I wrote it down in my notes. I was like, every time
there's actually a series of books by that name.
Really?
That I used to read. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
And then the second subtitle is, it's all small stuff.
Exactly. And another person is a friend. He's been a mentor as well, Prince Tom, and a friend, and also been a mentor.
What do they do? Are they artists?
They're visual artists. Itumela Mutswetla. And we also have Ms. Huitimang J. Kutsafalo, who you also know.
Yeah, very well.
Yes, you know very well.
He's mentored many people.
He's
currently on radio.
Yes, yes. That's also someone who introduced me to radio. That's why I'm able to have a little bit of confidence to doing this interview, because I've done a radio interview with him as well. Yeah. So those are the people who've been pivotal. If I'm forgetting anybody, a big shout out to everybody who's known that they've had an impact on me, because we need support. You know, as any person doing any craft, it might not be art. We need support all the time. And the last but not least, there's my family, my mom. You know, I couldn't be here if it wasn't for my mom and the parents who raised me, my sister, and those are people who serve my older sister. That's the only sister I have. Those are the people who serve as guardians, but also have mentored me throughout, because they have one or two experiences and whatever things they did.
Wow.
Yes.
It's very, very touching.
Yes.
Kudos to them for having brought you this far.
Thank you.
Yeah. Listen, you grab a crystal ball, you look into the future, a decade or two. Tell me about the brand, Busi Mabula brand, or tell me about the your artistic work and other things you want to do. What emerges? What can we expect in the future?
Expect a lot. Expect a whole lot, because I think that as people, we're always evolving, and that's going to be a difficult question for me to answer, because, you know, there's a quote that says, a quote in the Bible that says, man plan, but God has a final say, which basically means that you may plan as much as you want, you may have so many plans of what you want to do, but God has a way of just surprising you. So I've been surprised so many times by God that I'm in a little bit of dilemma, like, should I plan for the future? What should I do? But I do have plans for the future. And
I forgot to bless you. And there's a verse that says, He blesses the work of your hands.
He blesses the work of your
hands. So
hands.
you have to be working. And for you to work, you need to plan.
You need to plan.
So that He can give him something to bless.
Something to bless, exactly. I love that quote, actually, because it resonates so deeply with me. It means a lot because I am a planner. I love to have an idea of structure of some sort. And I believe that, because we're made in the image of God, we are like that because he's like that.
Yes, yes.
So I love to plan, and I do plan on expanding my art business. I wish for this I love to call it a creative studio when I say how art museum, because that's what it's called. But the bigger name, the registered name, my company name that's registered, is a museum project. So my Instagram is Her Art Museum, but
Her Art Museum.
Yes, but the registered company name is the museum project. Upon registering, I realized that the vision is not just gonna be me, because when you start off, it's you, but when you execute and you see that the planning phases are not just gonna be inclusive of you, I wish to be an institute of art that teaches and educates and motivates artists, holds the hand of the artist throughout. So somewhat of a residency. I'd love that.
How does a residency work?
How a residency works. It's some sort of a non-profit organization. We could look at it that way. That enables and gives resources, whether it's finances and a place to stay for artists to home and learn and hone their talent and execute whatever ideas that they have without because you also support them. Yes. So it's a school of some sort, it's an institution of some sort that
you have them in Botswana.
They do have them very few, but they're very few in number. So I'm trying to also go into that. And for me, creatively, I've expanded to doing creative work, because I am a creative, not just
expanded to doing what?
Creative work. So
namely
digital marketing.
Oh, tell us about that.
Digital marketing, it's something that I found. It was a found passion. It was always found within me, but I realized that spark that I talked about initially, when I was in Cairo, that's what sparked when I was in Cairo. So I'm doing a little bit of digital work. So far we have 2 clients that I'm working with on digital projects, and I'm really excited about that because I see the future is very bright. And
so it's complementing the artist.
I've also incorporated business development alongside my digital marketing because it's the era, ladies and gentlemen, for me to finally practice what I've learned at school. Because like we had mentioned before, I didn't practice art, so I never did anything. I was practicing from my degree and my studies. So I'm excited to practice what I've studied for, because it's definitely entrepreneurship. So digital marketing and business development coincide. And that's what I'm doing right now.
Sounds like an exciting future. Do you look to collaborating more with artists or mentoring other artists?
Of course, and I'm currently doing that actually. Just upcoming artists who have been reaching out to me to say, hey, you inspire me. One previous friend I was working with in an organization had reached out and told me that they're doing art because I inspired them to do art. So every now and then I just give them, nuggets to stay with and saying, hey, do this, do that, improve your skill with this. So far I have a few people that had come up into mind. They do ask for advice. I give them advice for free. I've been looking forward to really going big with this mentorship and guiding those upcoming artists. I had been held back by the projects I was working on, and the time when I looked at my time, it wasn't allowing, but I see a future of me doing more community work and working alongside artists, and because that's what I'm passionate about.
Okay, right, sounds interesting. Time to hit me with a question.
Great, I'm excited. Earlier on, when you're asking me mentorship, you are my mentor and somebody I look up to.
Oh, thank you.
And your work goes without saying. I always tell you that you are such a humble man. So many accolades that you have. You are a humble man.
Thank
and your humility is one of the top qualities, because You have so much. You have so much going for you, but it always surprises me how much you still stay grounded and down to earth. And you're a person I do take a lot of notes from. You're right there up there on my search engine list, because every time I'm doing something, I'll be like, how's Mr. Mogobe executing this? Because when we talk about social media, you're doing that. So if I'm looking for a caption, I check your page. I'm like, let me steal one or two. And there's so much I could say, because I'm always around you and learning from you. So there's so much that I learned from you. Thanks. But this is your question. Your question is, you're in a space of would you call yourself a motivationalist?
Yeah, inspirational.
An inspirational speaker. You're an inspirational speaker. Great. Now, why don't you tell people about I feel like most of the time as inspirational speakers, you spend a lot of time telling us to go out there and execute and do this and do that, but spend less time telling us and sitting us down about the challenges that go into it, the difficulties, the stifling things that can get you so down bad that you guys don't tell us about. And I have so much resentment. Okay, I'm joking. But I'm so angry that you guys don't tell us the difficulties and how much, how many challenges.
We always paint a glossy picture.
You paint a glossy picture, and that right there is my question. Why don't you guys tell us the challenges and you paint a glossy picture of what entrepreneurship or chasing your passion and going after what you believe in? Why don't you share the challenges so eagerly and transparently, so to say?
You just gave me an opportunity to shamelessly plug my book. Because one of the things that my mentees, I do a real estate mentorship.
Yes.
One of the things they've said is that, Mr. Mogobe, you've opened up too much. You've said a lot.
Yes.
I've discussed ex-girlfriends, the problems I had. I've discussed ex-employees, the problems I had. I've discussed ex-employees. I've discussed the number of times I had to take a big fat knife from my between my shoulder blades when I'd been betrayed. The number of times I've lost money, I've been wiped out. So I just don't share the triumphs. I share also the sad moments, the cataclysmic events, the setbacks, and the failures, blatant failures. I've failed in so many things. I mean, just around COVID, we closed 2 or 3 of our businesses because they did terribly. One restaurant and a school that we had to close. So contrary to the the premise of your question, which is that we don't share enough, I've shared too much, and if someone is watching, they should get the book. And a lot of my talks when I speak, for instance, The Man in the Arena. The Man in the Arena is based on a talk by Theodore Roosevelt. The whole base notion that it is not the critic who counts. It is the man who tries over and again, and even fails. But at least if he fails, he does so daring greatly.
Yes.
Because his place will never be like the place of those timid souls, I'm just paraphrasing, who know neither victory nor defeat.
Yeah, that's powerful.
I'm paraphrasing that quotation from The Man in the Arena. But I've developed a whole talk, presentation around that, where the anecdotes and the stories that I spiced it with are my own setbacks, where I blundered. Even in my talks when I teach my students, one of the items in the curriculum is where I spectacularly failed or where I screwed up myself, because I think that is important.
Yeah.
So I do my best to open up. I try my best. I do my best to be real and to be authentic and to be vulnerable.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You have yourselves an outlier. Because in this industry, you tell us, go for it. You're going to make it. But you don't tell us about the other percentage who don't, you know. So I'm really happy to hear that you do.
Because 9 out of 10 businesses collapse. They fail.
They do.
It's, they say that within the first 3 years.
It's
the
real.
key is that to keep picking yourself up. Even the Bible says that a righteous man falls 7 times and picks himself, and whereas the wicked man falls to his destruction.
Amen.
So I jokingly say, don't be wicked. When you have a setback, don't just give up.
Yes.
If you give up, you're being wicked.
Yes.
That's how I interpret that chapter of the book of Proverbs. So I hope I've answered your question.
You did an excellent job.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, can you talk to the viewer there, leave them with something uplifting, motivational, as we wrap up our conversation?
Great. The one thing that I would say, I would leave you guys with a very short story, which was about the man who was 3 feet from gold. Yes, this man had got a gold mine. He got his neighbors to invest. He got his family to invest in this idea that he had to search for gold in a gold mine. And he got the finances from all of them with excitement and vigor. He was like, I'm going to invest. And he dug for gold, found nothing. He found a little bit of gold that gave him hope. That's when he showed the family and the neighbors. That's when they believed him. But the more he dug and dug and dug, used his expertise, his knowledge, his labor, he got tired. With all the miners that he had, he gathered and told them, let's quit, because they didn't find gold. But he didn't know the little secret, the little nugget that he failed to see was the hope that he had to have, the faith he had to carry to keep going. He sold that gold mine to a junkman. And as he sold the gold mine to the junkman was wise. He said, I'm going to get an inspector to inspect this mine. I have faith, contrary to that other guy. And he told the inspector to inspect for the mine, and they did. And he told them, this is the spot where the gold is. They dug and dug and dug, and they didn't dig for too long until they came across that ore of gold. And that's when they hit the jackpot. And the lesson here is, don't be the first guy. Be the second guy. Be the junk guy. Because the junk guy had faith. He held on to his faith, and he wasn't unwavering to saying, let's keep going. He saw the work of the first guy, and he learned from the first guy. So we have to learn from the first guy to saying,
not only that,
let's keep
expert help as well from the
exactly get expert help, get mentorship. So I think that's the difference. And mind you, he bought the gold mine for only $100, which is sad. So let us learn from the second guy and be like the junk guy and keep faith and stay true to the cause, because sometimes our breakthrough is right before the failure, is right before giving up. So let's keep going. That's my word.
Wonderful. Beautiful, beautiful message.
Thank you.
Share with them all your contacts, even on social media.
So my social media handles are Her Art Museum. So it's her_museum on Instagram. Then on LinkedIn, it's Busi_Mabula.
Okay.
And I'll share my professional number with you. I don't mind. The professional number is 780986330. 780986330.
Is this for also the digital marketing?
Yes.
Both the digital marketing and the artistic
business
work.
development. Yes, that's where you can reach out to me and I'll answer. So
Okay.
I currently don't have Facebook, but stay on the lookout because we're still going under Busi Mabula. So you can go like that Facebook page and more content is coming your way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've been a great guest. You've done a good job.
Thank you so much.
All right.